Okay, here's a thought to kick things off. What if the very act of looking at something, actually changed it?
Changed it how? You mean like changed your perception?
No, not just your perception, but its actual fundamental nature.
Ah.
What if reality wasn't this?
Mm,
This solid, fixed thing just sitting out there waiting for us.
right.
But instead it was, I don't know, constantly shifting, fluid, kind of responsive to how you look at it, how you interact with it.
That's a pretty mind-bending question. It really goes against our everyday intuition, doesn't it?
Totally. It feels like a paradox.
Mm.
But here's the kicker. We're seeing hints, strong hints actually, from both cutting-edge science and ancient wisdom that point towards this very idea.
Observation shaping reality.
Exactly. That observation and maybe even just relationship itself might be what actually
Well,
shapes reality.
and that right there is exactly what we're diving into today. We've pulled together some really fascinating sources.
Where?
We're looking at the really intricate world of quantum physics on one hand.
Okay, the super small stuff.
Exactly. And then on the other hand, the profound depths of Zen Buddhism.
Wow, okay. Physics and Zen seems like they're worlds apart.
On the surface, absolutely. I mean, one's dealing with subatomic particles and experiments, the other with, centuries of spiritual practice and philosophy.
Right.
But, and this is the fascinating part, our sources show they actually converge. They meet on this really radical and honestly surprisingly similar idea,
Which
is that observation and these relationships we form, they aren't just like filters we see reality through.
Uh-huh.
They might be the fundamental architects of reality itself. It pushes us way beyond thinking there's just this fixed external world out there.
Into something more dynamic.
Exactly, a dynamic participatory universe. It's a big shift in thinking.
Okay, so our mission for this deep dive seems pretty clear then. We need to unpack these core ideas.
Right.
We've got the observer effect from quantum physics.
Yeah.
That weird thing where looking changes stuff.
Yeah, we'll break that down.
And then from Zen, these concepts. Ku. Emptiness.
Two, yes, emptiness. And NG-dependent origination.
Okay, Ku and NG, so we'll unpack those, but the key is bringing them together.
That's the goal. Not just presenting them separately, but showing you, the listener, how they line up in ways that are, well, frankly, pretty astonishing.
And this isn't just theory, right? This isn't just, oh, isn't that interesting in physics?
Not at all. This is like a shortcut, really, to understanding an idea that has genuinely profound implications for how you experience your everyday life.
So the promise is you walk away with a new lens, seeing a world that's maybe more dynamic, more responsive, maybe even more empowering.
That's the hope. Prepare for maybe a few aha moments along the way.
All right, I'm ready. Let's start with that quantum puzzle. This whole idea that just looking changes things. How does that even work?
Okay, so it starts with how things behave at the quantum level, the really, really tiny scale.
Yeah.
It's completely different from our everyday world.
Different how?
Well, take an electron, for instance. Our sources explain that if you're not actively trying to measure it, not observing it, it doesn't exist like a tiny ball bearing at one specific spot.
It doesn't. So where is it?
It's more like a wave of possibility, as physicists often describe it.
A wave of possibility. Like it could be anywhere.
Sort of. Think of it like a ripple spreading out, or maybe a ghostly cloud. It represents all the places the electron could be all at once. It's a probability distribution.
So it's just potential, not actual.
Exactly. Potentiality. But then, and this is the really weird part, the core of the observer effect.
Yeah.
The moment you try to observe it, the moment you introduce any kind of measurement or interaction.
Like looking at it or using a detector?
Precisely. That wave of possibility, it just collapses instantly.
Collapses. Into what?
Into a definite particle. It suddenly snaps into having a specific location or a specific state. It becomes real in the way we normally think of things.
Wow. So before you look, it's just maybe.
In a very real sense, yes. The implication is huge. A particle state, its actual defined existence, is not determined until observed.
That just messes with your head, doesn't it? It completely flips the script on how we think reality works.
It absolutely does. It suggests that the very act of observation determines reality.
Not just reveals it, but determines it.
Determines it, or at least participates in its determination. It's not just that we see it differently. The act of interacting seems to, well, solidify it.
Okay. Is there, like, proof of this? Experiments?
Oh, absolutely. This isn't just a wild idea. It's been demonstrated over and over again in labs. The most famous example, the classic one, is the double slit experiment.
Right. I've heard of that one. Can you walk us through it?
Sure. Imagine you have a barrier and it's got two narrow slits cut into it.
Okay.
And you fire tiny particles like electrons or photons one at a time towards this barrier. Behind the barrier, there's a screen to see where they land.
Right. So you'd expect if they're like little marbles, they either go through one slit or the other.
Exactly. And if they do, you should see two distinct bands on the screen behind the slits, right, where the marbles hit.
Makes sense.
But, and here's the quantum weirdness. If you don't watch which slit the particle goes through,
You just let them go.
yeah, you just fire them without checking their path. They don't act like marbles at all.
What do they do?
They act like waves. Even though you're firing them one by one, they seem to somehow spread out, interfere with themselves, almost like each particle goes through both slits at the same time.
Both slits.
That's the mystery. But the result on the screen isn't two bands. It's an interference pattern, a whole series of alternating light and dark bands.
Like when ripples on water meet and overlap.
Precisely like that. It's wave behavior, clear as day.
Okay, that's weird enough. But what happens when you do watch?
Now here's the observer effect in action.
Uh-huh.
The moment you put a detector near the slits, any device, even an automated one, designed to simply tell you which slit the particle went through,
Uh-huh.
that beautiful interference pattern vanishes instantly.
Gone. Just like that.
Completely gone. And what do you see instead?
Let me guess. Two bands.
Exactly. Two distinct bands, just like you'd expect from little marbles going through one slit or the other. The particles suddenly start behaving like particles again, simply because you observed their path.
So the very act of measuring which path it took forces it to choose a path.
That's exactly what it looks like. The act of observing changes particle behavior. It's undeniable.
Wow.
Now, this whole thing, this wave-particle duality and the observer effect, it naturally leads to a really deep and honestly pretty debated question in physics.
Which is?
Does observation involve consciousness? Like, does a human mind need to be involved for the wave to collapse?
Yeah, I was wondering about that. Is it me looking or just the machine?
Well, our sources touch on this. Some early interpretations and even some modern thinkers do lean towards consciousness playing a role. It's a fascinating idea. But the more, let's say, mainstream or widely accepted view today, especially when we talk about wave-particle duality, is that it's not necessarily conscious awareness, it's the interaction.
Interaction.
Yeah.
Like the particle bumping into the detector.
Exactly. Any interaction, any measurement process that extracts information about the particle's state, like its position or path, seems to be enough to force it out of that wave of possibilities.
So it doesn't have to be a person.
Likely not. It's the physical interaction itself. Before that interaction happens, the particle genuinely seems to exist as probability, which points to this fundamental idea.
Go on.
The world is not absolutely fixed before interaction. It's this realm of potential waiting for some form of engagement to make it concrete.
It's so incredibly strange, isn't it? It flies in the face of everything we think we know about how reality works.
It absolutely does.
Thinking that something exists as just pure potential, like a cloud of maybes,
Yeah.
until we interact with it, it feels like the universe is holding its breath, waiting for us.
We're waiting for any interaction,
Mhm.
perhaps.
Right, right. But still, it really shakes that foundation, that assumption that there's this objective world out there, all finished and done, just waiting for us to open our eyes and see it.
It suggests a much more participatory role for observation, for interaction.
Yeah. We're not just passive spectators. And, this is exactly, as you said earlier, where it gets really interesting.
The transition.
Because this utterly bizarre, counterintuitive idea from the bleeding edge of physics, it actually finds this incredible echo in a completely different tradition.
Ancient Zen Buddhism.
Exactly. It sets the stage perfectly for exploring how Zen, centuries ago, came to a strikingly similar view of reality. It's kind of thrilling,
It
actually.
really is. It's quite a leap from
Right.
subatomic particles to ancient Eastern philosophy, but the parallels are remarkable, so let's make that leap.
Okay, Zen Buddhism. Where do we start?
We start with a core concept called ku. It's often translated as emptiness.
Emptiness.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds negative. Like nothingness.
That's a super common misconception, actually, especially in the West, and it's really important to get this right. When Zen talks about ku, it's absolutely not about nothingness or like a void where things don't exist.
Okay, so what is it then?
Our sources clarify it beautifully. Ku signifies the blankness of inherent existence.
The blankness of inherent existence. Okay, unpack that for me.
It means that nothing, absolutely nothing you can point to, no object, no person, no thought, no phenomenon, has a fixed, independent, unchanging essence or substance within itself.
So things don't have like a solid core identity.
Exactly. They lack an intrinsic, self-sufficient nature. They are empty of that kind of inherent standalone reality.
But wait, are you saying things don't exist?
No, not at all. Things absolutely exist. You exist, I exist, this conversation exists. It's not denying existence, it's denying a particular kind of existence.
The kind where things are fixed and separate.
Precisely. The idea that things are fully formed, independent entities, completely separate from everything else, Zen says that's an illusion.
Can you give an example?
Think about a simple cup, like the one maybe sitting on your desk.
Okay, got it.
Is that cup inherently a cup all by itself? Zen would say no. Its cupness doesn't reside solely in the ceramic or the plastic.
Where does it come from then?
It arises from its relationships. Its relationship to holding liquid, its relationship to your hand using it, its relationship to being different from a plate or a bowl.
So its function, its context.
Exactly. If there was no liquid to hold, no one to use it, no concept of containing, what would cup even mean? Its identity isn't fixed in the object. It arises between the object and its context, its relationships.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get it. It's empty of a fixed, independent self.
You got it. That's the essence of Ku, and the implication is massive. Fixed things do not exist independently.
And because they don't exist independently,
Their meaning, their very nature, changes based on perspective and relationships.
how you see it changes it.
Precisely. As one of the insightful voices in our sources, puts it very simply, how you see changes how the world appears. It's a direct challenge to that common sense idea of a purely objective world just sitting there.
That is powerful. If how I see it changes how it appears.
Wow.
Yeah. So if things aren't fixed, if they're empty in that Zen sense, how do they exist? What holds them together?
Great question. And that leads us directly to the other key Zen concept, which is inseparable from Ku. It's called Engi.
Enki, okay.
Engi is usually translated as dependent origination or interdependent arising.
Dependent origination, meaning things arise dependently.
Exactly. Zen doesn't just say things are empty. Engi explains how they come into being, and it's through this vast interconnected web of relationships. Nothing stands alone.
So everything depends on everything else.
In essence, yes. The core teaching is all things exist through relationships and not in isolation. Everything arises in dependence upon other conditions, other things.
Can you make that more concrete? It sounds a bit abstract.
Absolutely. Our sources give a really powerful personal example that makes it click for a lot of people.
Yeah.
This self cannot exist without relationships with others.
Myself. Me.
Yes, you. Think about who you are. Your identity is woven from countless threads of relationship. You're a child to your parents, maybe a parent yourself, a friend, a sibling, a colleague, a neighbor, a citizen. All these roles, your sense of who you are, your personality, even your thoughts and language, they are all shaped and defined continuously by your interactions with others, with society, with the environment.
So without those relationships.
What would you even mean? Could you have a name, a language, memories, a sense of purpose? Your self isn't some fixed, isolated nugget inside you. It's a dynamic process constantly arising and changing through connection.
That really lands. Myself isn't a thing. It's a relationship or a network of them.
It's an emergent phenomenon arising within that network. And this idea connects right back, doesn't it? Zen talks about seeing causes changing.
Oh.
Your perspective, your relationship to something fundamentally shapes its meaning, how it shows up for you. It's remarkably parallel to that quantum observer effect.
Where observing changes the particle state.
Exactly. In Zen, it's our engagement, our way of relating, our seeing, that allows reality to manifest in a particular way, to stand up, as it were. It brings form out of that emptiness, Ku, through the process of Engi, relationship.
So reality isn't just out there.
According to Zen, no. It's not some static thing outside that can be seen, like a finished painting we just stumble upon.
Then what is it?
It's something that arises in the here and now, constantly, within these relationships, within this present moment of interaction. It's more like a verb than a noun.
Like a process, an unfolding.
Exactly, like a dance or a river flowing. It's always in process. This whole perspective is geared towards dismantling the notion of an absolutely fixed world.
Because if things arise through relationships, and relationships are always changing,
then reality itself is constantly changing and fluid, always in motion. It never settles into some final permanent state. It's perpetually emerging.
Okay. This dynamic view,
Yeah.
it really does set the stage for bringing these two worlds, quantum physics and Zen, together.
It truly does. The groundwork is laid for seeing just how astonishing the convergence is.
Right. This is the moment. Let's connect the dots explicitly. We've got quantum uncertainty and the observer effect on one side, and Zen's emptiness and pendant origination on the other. How do they actually meet?
Well, Kenzo, another voice from our sources, really nails the core question here. He asks essentially, so what does this all mean? Does quantum physics, unobserved until determined, resonate with Zen's freely changes because it is empty?
And the answer is?
A clear and resounding yes, according to the parallels we're exploring. The alignment is incredibly strong, right at the foundation of how both frameworks understand reality.
What's the core alignment?
Both of them fundamentally challenge that default Western assumption of an absolutely fixed world that exists independently of us or any interaction.
Okay. How does quantum physics do that again?
In quantum physics, remember, a particle state isn't just unknown before measurement. It's literally not determined. It's indeterminate.
Right, the wave of possibility.
Exactly. Which means reality at that fundamental level is not absolutely fixed before interaction. It's potential waiting to become actual through engagement.
And how does Zen challenge the fixed world idea?
Through ku, emptiness. Because things are empty of that fixed, inherent, independent essence, they aren't locked into one rigid form. They are free. They can freely change. Their nature isn't predetermined or set in stone.
So quantum says reality isn't fixed until interaction makes it so? And Zen says reality can change precisely because it lacks that fixed core to begin with.
You've got it. It's like they're describing the same lack of inherent fixedness, but from completely different angles and using different languages. One uses math and experiments, the other uses meditative insight and philosophy.
But they land in a remarkably similar place. Reality isn't solid until something happens. Observation, interaction, relationship.
Exactly. And both converge powerfully on this idea that reality doesn't just sit there waiting to be perceived. It actively arises. It comes into being.
Arises how?
Through that very interaction or relationship. In quantum physics, it's the observer-observe interaction collapsing the wave function.
Making the particle definite.
Right. And in Zen, through NG, it's the network of relationships and functions that allows the cupness of the cup or the selfness of the self to arise.
So in both cases, observation or perception isn't passive.
Not at all. It plays a crucial role in shaping or determining reality. We're not just watching a pre-existing movie, we're somehow involved in its projection, moment by moment.
Involved in its emergence.
That's a great way to put it. Our sources really emphasize this shared idea that reality arises or comes into being through these interactions in the present moment. It's not static, it's a continuous unfolding.
So it's less about seeing an outer visible world that's already finished.
Right, like looking at a photograph that's already developed.
And more about the world coming into being. Or, as one source put it, standing up.
Yes, standing up within that dynamic interplay of relationships, right here, right now. That distinction is absolutely crucial. It shifts everything.
From reality as a noun to reality as a verb.
Precisely. It's not a fixed state. It's an ongoing process, a co-creation. It implies the world isn't just happening to us.
It's happening with us, through us.
Yes. Through our active participation, our observation, our relationships.
Okay, let's just pause and absorb that. If we pull back and summarize the absolute core takeaway from this convergence.
Go for it.
It seems to be that reality isn't static. It's not like a rock, solid and unchanging.
Definitely not.
It's fundamentally dynamic and emergent. It's always in motion, always unfolding, always being shaped.
Constantly.
And the truly mind-blowing part is that how it gets shaped involves us.
Yeah.
How we engage with it, how we observe it, how we relate to it, that's part of the process.
It suggests we're not just spectators in the universe.
We're participants, co-creators even, of the reality we experience.
Yeah.
That's huge.
It is huge, and it leads directly to the practical implications, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Because you listening right now might be thinking, okay, this quantum Zen stuff is fascinating, maybe even a bit weird, but so what? What does this mean for me when I'm stuck in traffic or dealing with a difficult boss?
Right. The rubber meets the road question.
Exactly. If we take seriously this idea that observation determines reality, or at least influences it, and that reality is not solidified, well, what does that give us?
What power, what freedom. does that perspective offer?
Yeah. And it's not about, suddenly developing superpowers. It's not like you can stare at the traffic and make it disappear.
Wouldn't that be nice? But no, probably not.
Probably not. But it points to something maybe more subtle, yet potentially far more powerful in our actual lives.
Which is?
It's the idea that we have the freedom to choose how to see.
Ah, the how, not the what.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's often not about changing the external facts, the traffic jam, the difficult situation.
Mm-hmm.
Those things often feel outside our control.
They often are.
But the how we relate to those facts, how we frame them, how we choose to engage with them, that is where the freedom lies. And according to these ideas, changing how you see and do can actually change the reality of the situation for you.
Can you give a concrete example?
Okay, let's take that traffic jam. The what is undeniable.
Mm-hmm.
Stationary cars, frustration, delay.
Yep, been there.
But how you see it, that's where choice comes in. Do you see it only as a fixed obstacle, a source of pure stress?
The default mode, maybe.
Right. Or could you choose to see it differently? Maybe as unexpected quiet time, a chance to listen to this deep dive properly, or even just a shared human experience, finding a bit of solidarity with the other drivers.
So changing your relationship to the event.
Exactly. And when you change that relationship, doesn't the reality of that traffic jam shift for you?
Yeah.
Might still be slow, but its quality, its impact on you transforms. The stress might lessen, replaced by something else.
That makes sense. You're co-creating your experience of the jam by choosing your perspective, your relationship to it.
Right. And this connects back to what you said about uncertainty and emptiness.
How so?
Well, that inherent uncertainty before quantum observation, or that blankness of inherent existence. Cuckoo, in Zen, you said it's not a flaw.
Right. It's not a bug, it's a feature.
Exactly. It's precisely in that gap, that openness, that lack of absolute fixedness where creation and freedom reside.
Yes. If everything was already completely locked down and predetermined, where would choice be? Where would change come from? That fluidity is the space for possibility.
So the message from both traditions seems to be this kind of powerful, maybe paradoxical wisdom.
Which is?
While the world cannot be controlled,
Yeah.
we can't just bend external reality to our will entirely.
Yeah.
Our relationships can be changed. How we relate to the world, to others, to ourselves, that we can influence.
That shifts the focus, doesn't it? From trying to control the uncontrollable out there to cultivating our way of being in here, in relation.
Yeah, it puts the power back in our court, in a way. We can't stop the rain, but we can choose whether to dance in it, metaphorically speaking, or just get soaked and miserable.
It's about agency within a relationship rather than absolute control over outcomes.
Think about applying this. Maybe you're facing a difficult conversation, say, with a coworker. What is the conflict, the disagreement?
Okay.
But the how is your choice. Do you relate to it as a battle you need to win? Or maybe as a chance to understand a different viewpoint, to find common ground, to practice skillful communication.
Choosing the relationship can change the entire dynamic.
It really can. Or think about how you relate to yourself. Are you fixed by your past, defined only by mistakes or limitations you perceive?
Stuck in a narrative.
Right. Or can you relate to yourself through that Zen lens of Ku and Enji? As someone without a fixed, unchanging core, someone constantly emerging through relationships, always capable of change and new possibilities.
Seeing the self as fluid, not fixed, empty of inherent limitations, in a sense.
Exactly. So the core message, loud and clear from our sources, seems to be, the world is not solidified. Reality constantly changes through relationships.
It's fluid, it's responsive.
It's more like a flowing river than a block of concrete. And you're not just standing on the bank watching, you're in the river, influencing the flow through how you navigate it.
That's the real aha moment, isn't it? That these seemingly abstract ideas from physics and philosophy actually offer this incredibly practical, empowering lens for your everyday life.
Yeah. It invites you into a more active, more engaged, and maybe ultimately a freer way of being in the world. Every moment, every interaction becomes a potential act of creation.
Shaping the reality that arises.
What a trip. Seriously,
Yeah.
You've gone from subatomic weirdness to ancient wisdom and found this incredible, surprising unity.
It's quite something.
This shared understanding of reality as, well, not fixed, as fluid, relational, shaped by how we observe and interact with it. It just turns so many assumptions upside down.
It really does challenge our default settings about the world and our place in it.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, maybe there's a final thought, something provocative for you, our listener, to take away and chew on.
Okay. Building on everything we've discussed. If we accept this convergence, if we entertain the idea that reality is constantly arising in the here and now through observation and relationships,
Hmm.
then what responsibility does that place on each of us? Not just for our personal experience, but for the collective reality we all share and co-create.
Wow. Responsibility. That adds another layer.
Think about it. How might your own habitual ways of seeing, of relating to others, to situations, to information, how might those patterns be actively contributing moment by moment to the world that shows up around you and around all of us?
So my perspective doesn't just shape my world, but ripples out.
If reality arises through relationship and interaction, it seems unavoidable, doesn't it? It suggests our individual ways of being have collective consequences, shaping the shared world we inhabit together.
That's a lot to consider. The implications feel enormous, from how we handle disagreements to how we address global challenges.
Profound implications, absolutely. It invites a deeper awareness of how our inner world of perception and relationship might be constantly sculpting the outer world we experience. Something to definitely mull over.